Maybe a week off from playing games filled with nothing but practice was just what the doctor ordered. We have some Laval Rocket wins to talk about today. That's right, you heard me correctly. We have Laval Rocket victories to review today. That's going to be the first thing that we cover on today's episode of the Rocket Hockey Report. We're, of course, going to then go through the prospect breakdown, highlight some of the good and bad things going on with the prospects in Laval this week, pick out a standout star from the prospect pool in the Laval Rocket lineup, and then, of course, give you the Laval look ahead, where we take a look at what else is on the calendar for this coming week. Oh, and I should mention our good friend Patrick Williams, the AHL writer for NHL.com, as well as the features writer at the AHL's official website. He's back on the show, joining me again today. He'll be here in just a few minutes. So last week we talked about the fact that it was a little odd on the scheduling for Laval last week and this week. They had the entire week off last week, nothing but a bunch of days of practice, which probably was a relief for them coming off of that 5-0 shutout thanks to the Toronto Marlies the previous Saturday. So that's exactly what Laval did. They spent the whole week at Place Bell with JF and the coaching staff putting them through their paces and gearing up for what is set to be this week, just an absolutely packed schedule for the Laval Rocket this week. It all kicked off on Sunday and on Monday with a back-to-back road series in Manitoba against the Moose. That's, of course, the AHL affiliate of the Winnipeg Jets. And this was a 3 p.m. Eastern Time start on Sunday afternoon, followed by a Monday morning school day game, 11:30 Eastern Time, 10:30 Central. This is a featured type game that a lot of teams around the AHL employ at least once on their schedule, having a school day game where area schools can bus kids in and they all get to be there for a game. It's not something Laval does at Place Bell, so the only time they get to take part in a school day game, which is very raucous, very loud, but very fun, is if they happen to be the visiting team when another team in the American League does that, and that's what Manitoba had on their schedule for this week. So that's 2 games in 2 days right at the beginning of the week, but the Laval schedule doesn't end there. In fact, later in the show, when we look at the games coming up, there are not 1, not 2, but 3 more games on Laval's schedule this week. And I am happy to report that they came away with 2 victories on the road. Not 1, but 2. Back-to-back wins for the Laval Rocket facing the Manitoba Moose, who were .500 on the season going into this little 2-game series. They were 4-4, and Laval came out very strongly in both of them, took an early command of both games, and managed to keep the Manitoba Moose at bay in both games as well. They also, for once, had some pretty consistent and confident-looking goaltending, both from Jakub Dobeš and from Strauss Mann. Now, I should note, on Manitoba's end of the ice, they were without their most successful and strongest goaltender this weekend, Colin Delia, out of the lineup. So they were using a couple of guys, one of whom not as much experience this season in the crease, and the other, Thomas Milic, getting his AHL debut when he came in relief of Oskari Salminen on Sunday. So a little bit lopsided on the goaltending front, but really strong game on Sunday. Laval came out with a real bang-bang play, getting up 2-0 really early in the game, literally in the opening minutes of the game. Jared Davidson was back in the lineup, finally back after a month off due to injury, and he made an impact right away, scoring his first pro goal later in that game, a real highlight moment for him. The only thing that really kind of soured things in terms of this game was what happened right at the final horn. Brady Keeper got a little bit of a slash from an opponent. He didn't like it. He turned around, cross-checked the guy right in the face. Brady Keeper getting a post-game, got a match penalty for that, but the melee that ensued following that involved a bunch of players coming off the Laval bench since the game was over, including Jaden Struble, who kind of clotheslined one of the Moose players with his elbow around his neck and took him to the ice on his way past him. That turned into a big fight that Struble then landed a bunch of punches while Nathan Legare was kind of holding the guy. It was a really ugly scene. And Jaden Struble ending up with a 3-game suspension from the league office early on Monday morning before Monday's game. So that means Jaden Struble not only missed Monday's second game against Manitoba, but he'll also be out of the lineup for 2 more games for Laval later on this week. That was the only unfortunate part of that game. Jakub Dobeš getting another win, looked very strong, made some really big saves, really big plays, really liked how he played. And in the second game on Monday, Strauss-Mann came in, got his first victory in net on the season. This was a big deal. Needed to see Strauss-Mann actually look like he was playing with some confidence, and that's exactly what he did on Monday morning. Once again, the Rocket coming out strong, getting another quick goal to get things started within the first couple of minutes of the game. And Manitoba just didn't have an answer all weekend for what Laval was able to do. They did make them pay on their power play a bit. Laval got into a little bit of penalty trouble, and so still have to kind of get that under control a bit. But overall, a resounding success of a weekend for the Laval Rocket, who, after only having 2 wins in the entire season, are about to head back to Quebec with another 2 wins in their back pocket. No new injuries really to report this week. Lias Andersson is still out with an injury that he sustained in practice last week for Laval. Jakub Dobeš, although he got the win on Sunday afternoon, he didn't finish the game. Very late in the third period, he actually left the game for the last handful of minutes. Basically was experiencing some cramping and needed to get some electrolytes and fluids into him. So he left, went down the tunnel. Jakub Dobeš was backing up Strauss-Mann on Monday morning. All was fine, so no injuries to report there. And as far as roster movement, Gustav Lindstrom was recalled to the Montreal Canadiens on Sunday in advance of the Vancouver game in case Jordan Harris wasn't able to play. And that meant that Yoel Armia was sent back to Laval in order to make room for the Lindstrom call-up. Armia did not travel out to Manitoba to join Laval for those 2 games against the Moose. He instead will rejoin the team when they return to Quebec. So with those 2 wins, that bumps Laval to an overall season record of 4-7-1. And while it is very exciting and encouraging to see Laval put together 2 successful and kind of dominant, commanding games, we do have to kind of temper things. They still only have a .375 winning percentage. They are still last in the North Division. Points-wise, they are next to last. They're 14th in the Eastern Conference, but in terms of their winning percentage, they are still last in the Eastern Conference. And in terms of points, they are sitting now 25th in the league, but if we look at winning percentage, it does drop them down to 30th in the league. So still a long way to go, a lot of work to do, but hey, 2 wins to start what's going to be a 5-game week. Nothing to frown about there. So now it is time for our prospect breakdown. This is, of course, the point of the show where we look specifically at the Montreal Canadiens prospects who are playing for the Laval Rocket, pick out some not so good things and some really good things that we saw the prospects do over the course of the past week, and that would be in the course of these 2 games against Manitoba. I'll start with Jakub Dobeš. I was exceptionally pleased to see him play a solid, confident, and poised game on Sunday afternoon. He was a big reason they won that game, kept them in it. He was tracking the puck well. This was the most calm and stable I've seen him in net, and really not looking like he was unsure at all, which is a great bit of encouragement moving forward. In addition, I'd have to say Joshua Waugh, back on the good side of things after a 4-game slump where he didn't get a single point. Remember, he started the season on a pretty good hot streak. Then he was all but invisible for the last 4 games and seemed to have kind of regressed a little bit. Well, he's come back out in these 2 games against Manitoba, tallying 1 goal and 1 assist in each of those games. And so Joshua Waugh looks like he's picking up the pace a little bit again. as well as Sean Farrell. Sean Farrell has really come into his own this weekend in Manitoba. On Monday alone, Sean Farrell had a goal and 2 assists. That is 2 goals and 2 assists in both of those games combined. And on Sunday, had 5 shots on goal. So Sean Farrell really starting to kind of wake up a bit. And remember, Waugh and Farrell have been kind of anchoring as the wings on that second line for a while because there were indications that the two of them could have a lot of good chemistry together, and it seems like that is starting to gel and starting to come to fruition. So it'll be exciting to see if that can continue. On the not so great side of things, I will say Riley Kidney seems to be struggling a little bit. Riley Kidney, in all games played, has just 1 assist on the season, and that is the only point that he has. And that was 4 games ago. He hasn't had a point. He didn't have a point in either of the 2 games this weekend, nor did he have one in the game against Toronto a little over a week ago. Now, this is a question for me in terms of, is it something with the player or is it something with his line mates? You can usually find Riley Kidney on the third line with guys like Lucas Candata, Philippe Maillet. And yes, Candata can be an impact player for Laval. Maillet has his good games and bad games, but I'm not sure if it's the right fit for Riley Kidney, to be quite honest. And as I say, he's been not very noticeable for Laval so far this season. It is early. I'm not too concerned about it yet, but it is something to keep an eye on. And, well, we already talked about Jayden Struble. In fact, I am very high on Jayden Struble's play this season. I think he is one of Laval's best defensemen so far this season, but was not impressed with how he handled himself at the end of Sunday's game, and now earning himself a 3-game suspension. The Rocket will be without his good play and services for a number of games this week, which puts his team at a severe disadvantage. So he goes into the not so great pile on the prospect breakdown this week for me as well. So who is my standout star? Well, I have to go with Sean Farrell, just because he's really kind of, that stick of his is waking up a bit, and he's really having some good, strong play. He's making those connections with Joshua Waugh, and I think that's really encouraging to see Sean Farrell. All of the accolades in terms of prospect scoring have been falling on Joshua Waugh's shoulders in this early season. So it's nice to see Sean Farrell kind of making people sit up and take notice as well. He's my standout star this week. Okay, on the Laval look ahead, I mentioned that they've already played 2 games this week, 1 on Sunday, 1 on Monday. They aren't done yet. They've got 3 more to go this week. That's right, 5 games over the course of 7 days. This is something that is, 3-in-3s are common in the AHL. That's 3 games in 3 days, usually a Friday night, Saturday night, and a Sunday afternoon. That's a common thing in the AHL that you don't see in the NHL. But a 5-in-7 is not something that we see very often in the AHL. Okay, and I did promise, of course, that Patrick Williams was going to be back with us this week. He is back. We call him the AHL guru around here for Rocket Sports Media. Patrick, welcome, first of all. Glad to have you here.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Always good to have you. Can we please talk about this schedule for Laval this week? I spoke a few minutes ago earlier in the show about the fact that while it may be a new concept to fans for the Laval Rocket, that a school day kind of game in the AHL is really not unheard of and is actually quite popular around the league. But that's not the case for playing 5 games in 7 days, coming off of what is essentially the hockey equivalent of a bye week for Laval. They're playing no games all week last week, and 5 games in 7 days, 3 of which are on the road. This is not something we see around the American Hockey League very often, right?
No, it's like 2 very rare, if not unheard of almost, things put back to back, right? So I don't recall a team having an 8-day break. I can't recall the last time.
Unless they're waiting around for a playoff round. That's the only time that happens.
Yeah, and that's hard enough in the playoffs where, you're looking for a break, right? You're just, you need some time just to heal up and, get ready for the next round. But we're only, a month into the season. So teams, if anything, are kind of eager to get playing a little bit. Which brings me to the next point, which now they will definitely make up for that time and get playing a bit because 5-7, kind of like a little bit of everything. You get like two sets of back-to-back nights within that 5-7.
Yeah.
You get a morning game. You get travel to and from the east to west and back. You get an overnight trip down to Utica just to kind of tie the bow on it at the end. And somehow in the middle there, you have 2 home games, right? Like, so, they like in the span of that 5-7, you play 3 of the 4 divisions in the league. You have Atlanta division.
There you go.
Lehigh Valley. You have 2 divisional games, and then you have these 2 games out west.
That's right.
So they're getting a little bit of everything thrown at them here. So it's definitely rare. And I was thinking that too, like, there's another, just so Laval fans know that they're not completely off on their own. Like Henderson had the entire past weekend off as well. They haven't played since last Wednesday. They won't play till this coming Wednesday, so they have a full week, and then they go into a 3 and 4. So it's a little weird right now.
A little odd.
Yeah, like
let's hope this doesn't become a trend.
Yeah, and then the whole this league is generally like very routine oriented. Like, it's like, it's pretty much a Friday, Saturday league, and then you throw in the odd Wednesday game or the odd Sunday game. But
sure,
you don't have it's not like the NHL where it's kind of games are all over the place. Like Monday morning games, you don't see. Like, you don't really see Monday games, period, unless it's a special holiday.
Right.
Maybe a Boxing Day or something like that. But this is a little different. Like you said, the morning games are very popular around the league. Like, it's a good way to sort of convert maybe what would be not a very popular weeknight game in terms of attendance, and then you convert that into a morning game. All of a sudden, they have 7,000-8,000. Kids.
They had over 6,000 kids in Canada Life Center for Laval's game on Monday morning.
Yeah, sugared up and
ready to go.
Ready to go, and I pity the poor school teachers that have to kind of corral the kids at the end and
onto the bus to get home. That's right.
The bus and bring them back to class. And I don't know, for the last hour or 2 of the school day, try to make something of the day, but more power to them. So,
it's always a fun initiative. It is loud and it is a little chaotic, but it's a great way to get kids who sometimes, maybe some of them have never been to a hockey game before, maybe introduce new eyeballs to the sport, or, you saw plenty of kids that had jerseys on too. So, very much fun, very much fun.
Yeah. So, it makes a lot of sense, both from like marketing and promoting the game wise, and also just, from a financial standpoint, like, a typical Wednesday night game or Tuesday night game in the league might get 2,500 fans. Well, now you're getting 6, 7, 8,000 fans, right? And potentially, kind of planting the seeds for more long term fandom for some of those kids. Like, even if I don't know, 5-10% of those kids kind of get that, get hooked. Right on the game,
they start bugging mom and dad to go to games.
Yeah, that's a potential fan, right? Like,
that's right.
Like, especially at a young age. Like, I don't know exactly how old the kids were today, but they do the crowd shots, and like maybe 9-10 years old, and like that's kind of like the prime. Whatever you're talking about, whether sports or anything, that's kind of the prime time to get people into something, right? That's when you really get. Kind of set those habits for life almost. So
absolutely.
It makes a lot of sense in that regard.
So since we have you here, we have to discuss the breaking news around the American Hockey League. So this is not necessarily, obviously, Laval Rocket related, but this is big news. Edmonton Oilers coming out on Sunday, firing Jay Woodcroft. Immediately, almost immediately after, they announced that they have a replacement for him already, hiring Kris Knoblauch, who was currently, as of, at this point, it's Tuesday, so 48 hours ago, was employed as the head coach of the Hartford Wolfpack, who's the AHL affiliate for the New York Rangers, that they had hired him as their new head coach in Edmonton, and he was jetting off to Edmonton. The Wolfpack had a Sunday afternoon game that day. Suddenly, okay, well, we're going to promote an assistant coach to your head coaching position, and off you go.
Yeah.
Definitely shook things up a couple of days ago on Sunday when this happened. I guess let's just get your reaction to the fact that it was Kris Knoblauch who got tapped for this. He did have a storied coaching career in the CHL. He did coach Connor McDavid when he played for Erie. And he does have a little bit of NHL coaching experience from his time spent as an assistant behind the bench for the Philadelphia Flyers, and some other coaching kind of sprinkled in there as well. What are your thoughts on what he's done at the AHL level with Hartford, and just what he might bring as a new face behind the bench for the Edmonton Oilers?
Yeah, so he's very, very calm. Like, you almost feel like you're talking to, I don't know, maybe an accountant, or somebody, like, just very, like, very
So
methodical,
clinical.
very clinical, very detailed. I'm sure he yells, but I've never seen any inclination of it. Like, like, he's very soft spoken. Like, so, like, if you're bringing him into Edmonton, like, that's gonna, which is obviously a very tense situation. He's got to take the temperature of that entire atmosphere down several notches. Like, you're not bringing in, let's say if you're bringing Tortorella, where
Yeah.
like that's gasoline on the fire, so to speak. Like, this is the opposite of that. Like, he's very, personality wise, very much, that in that frame of mind. Very good teacher. Very, had some real success in Hartford in terms of not so much wins and losses, but teaching wise, like Will Colley came up, Zach Jones came up, and like, for people that aren't familiar with the Rangers Hartford situation, like for years they just didn't develop players at all. Like, and a good portion of that was just it's kind of like if you're not putting a lot into the system in terms of talent and prospects and picks,
Right.
well, you're probably not going to get a lot out of the system, but then, so it's that draft and development aspect, how much is the draft, how much is the development? Either way, they did start to put some more into the system, and lo and behold, more, they were getting more out of it. But he was a big part of, taking players like a Will Colley who came in with a lot of potential, but, within a year he had him off to the NHL. So like, he's real good on the details. He tends to, like, he's very sort of engaged with his players in terms of like wanting to sit down and to know each one of them and tailor, kind of a customized development plan for each one of them, not kind of a one size fits all cookie cutter approach to, like, this is how I coach and my players have to adapt to me. It's more, I'll adapt to them, like if this guy needs that, that's what I'll give him. If that, if player down the hall, needs something else, that's what I'll give that player, So I think he'll be good in that sense. I guess the challenge for him is just, you think this past Friday night, he coached Hartford, Saturday night coached Hartford, gets on a plane and jumps right in, off the plane into a press conference with the Oilers, has a game tonight. Like, it's going to take some time just for him to even get up to speed on things like,
Right.
like learn your personnel and, because, he was fully engaged at the AHL, he had his own team. Like, hey, I guess you're kind of aware of what's going on in the NHL, but you have a lot going down.
You got enough on your own plate.
Yeah, you're not there really worried about the Edmonton Oilers when you're, on the other side, of the continent. So he has to just sort of, just get adapted there. So, I mean, I think this would be a difficult situation for any coach to walk into, even if you're bringing in like, an experienced guy like, I don't know, like a Bruce Boudreau or something, right? Never mind, somebody taking on their first head coaching job at the NHL level. So
Yeah.
I think that would be something to watch, just like how quickly can he kind of hit the ground running and make that adjustment to, a much different environment in terms of you're not coaching 20, 21-year-old prospects that are trying to make the NHL. You're you have a lot of big contracts in Edmonton. You have a lot of guys that, have a lot of say and, carry a lot of ego and all that. So that's a whole different dynamic for him to learn to work with.
I guess that is one advantage, that he at least has a familiar face with Connor McDavid, that they have a relationship and a rapport with each other from when he coached him when he was younger. So baby steps.
Baby steps. Edmonton is, as we all know, is it's been a little bit of a roller coaster. I think, gosh, like we were saying before the show, like, going back 30 plus years to the Stanley Cup days, and this is just the next step in that. That ever-changing environment. I think I saw something like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is like he's been there 13 years. This is going to be his 10th head coach. So, yeah, they need they just need some stability there first and foremost. So I think if Knoblauch can bring nothing more than that, then that will be a big step.
It would be a very big step.
Yes.
Patrick, thank you so much. Always a wealth of knowledge, and can't wait to have you back on the show again very, very soon.
Sounds great. Thank you.
So coming up this week, Laval returns home. They will play Belleville on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock at Place Bell. They will then host the Lehigh Valley Phantoms for the first time this season on Friday night at Place Bell. And then they turn around right away on Friday night and head to Utica to take on the Comets in New York on Saturday night. So could this be a week that Laval gains some ground in the standings? Belleville, Lehigh Valley, and Utica all not having the strongest of starts. I would say Belleville's probably done the best so far of all three of those teams. So this could be a quote-unquote easier week for Laval. And if they ride that 2-game win momentum coming off of the Manitoba trip, they could really kind of take the bull by the horns and use this week. It's going to be a tiring week, but they could use this week to their advantage to really try to right the ship a little bit and get things back on the right track. Hey, if you have a question about the Laval Rocket or Habs prospects playing in Laval, or even about the Montreal Canadiens themselves, drop me a comment down below, because on next week's episode of Habs Hockey Report, which I host every Thursday, I'm opening up the Rocket Sports mailbag and answering your questions. So if you have a question about the Canadiens, the Laval Rocket, or Habs prospects playing in the AHL, drop me a comment down below. Make sure you have that submitted by Monday, November 20th, and then look out for Habs Hockey Report to come out next Thursday, November 23rd, when I will answer your questions on a Rocket Sports mailbag. Now, how do you know when that video comes out? Well, the best way to do that is to be subscribed. Hit that button if you haven't done so already, and also tap that notification bell. That way you'll know when this show, Rocket Hockey Report, comes out, or Habs Hockey Report, or our flagship podcast, The Canadiens Connection. As I mentioned, Habs Hockey Report is another show that I do host here on the channel. And if you happen to miss my most recent episode, where we're starting to talk about some issues that the Habs should and could address sooner rather than later, then you're going to want to check out this video right here, and I'll see you again next week.